You're listening to Paris: A State of Mind on Paris Underground Radio. For more great content, join us on Patreon at patreon.com/Paris Underground Radio.
Welcome to Paris: A State of Mind. Join us as we talk about the good, the bad, the ins, the outs of property rentals and purchases in and around Paris. We'll have topics for renters, owners, and visitors, share questions we are regularly asked, and more. My name is Gail Boisclair of Perfectly Paris, and my co-host is Marie Pistinier of Lokim Paris. Be a part of it. Both of us are proud members of the SPLM, the first representative body of furnished rental professionals. Hello, hello, hello. We are in the podcast room for Paris: A State of Mind, and we are interviewing someone else for our never-ending series about why do you like, or maybe not, living in your arrondissement, in your area. So today, I have the pleasure of welcoming my wonderful, world-famous, the whole world knows her, and if you don't know her, you should, Heather Stimmler. She is a dual French-American citizen living in France since 1995, and people think that I've lived here long. She surpasses my record. And the past 19 years, she's been in Paris's 13th arrondissement, and I'm sure you all know Heather for her also world-famous website called Secrets of Paris. And she's had a newsletter with Secrets of Paris since 1999. She is the editor, creator, and jack of all trades for Secrets of Paris. Please, Heather, welcome to our show.
Thanks, Gail. It's great to be here.
So, well, before I get into asking my personal questions, what arrondissement do you currently live in, even though I gave that away in the intro?
I live in the 13th arrondissement.
And what's your closest metro station?
The closest is Olympiades.
Ah, okay.
Line 14.
And how long have you lived there? 19 years, you said?
19 years in the neighborhood. I spent the first 14 years one metro stop away from here. I used to live at Place d'Italie.
Oh, wow. So you were like a true blue 13th person.
Oh, yeah. And before I lived here, the first 3 years I lived in Paris, I lived in the 5th arrondissement, just like literally like a block from the 13th. I lived at Rue Mouffetard, the very bottom of Rue Mouffetard, and I lived on the Rue Broca also, which are both literally the next street over is the 13th. So I've always been close to the 13th.
That's funny. And so with all of this wonderful history of the 13th, is there a reason why you chose to live in this particular area?
No, I mean, I definitely, and I've lived in the 18th, I've lived in the 9th, I've lived in the 16th. Thank God that was the shortest. Sorry for all of you who live in the 16th. I lived in the South of France, and I lived in suburbia for a year, which was a misguided idea. In my 30s. So I was looking for a place to come back to, and I wasn't specifically back, that was in 2004. I wasn't specifically looking for the 13th, but as soon as I saw the ad, it was on the bulletin board at the American Church. As soon as I saw the address, I knew it was on the Avenue des Gobelins. And I was like, definitely. And I went there and I loved it. And so that's how it's sort of accidentally. I remember somebody asking me once, a French person, like, why do you live in the 13th? Yeah. but then, after living here for so long, when I started looking to buy in 2017, I definitely focused on this part of the 13th because I just love it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't go to the 13th often, but I do have an apartment that I manage in the 13th, but it's long-term lets only. It's at Bibliothèque Nationale, so not very far from you. And actually, until I had that apartment to manage, I really, truly didn't spend that much time in the 13th. And I could say, what I think about the area around there. I found it surprisingly much more interesting than what I thought. Really.
Yeah. I don't think any tourists really know the 13th unless they, for some reason, went to Chinatown for the parade. But even Parisians don't really know it. And I have to admit, I kind of don't want to talk about it because I don't want anyone to know about
Stay
the
out.
13th.
Stay away.
I worked in tourism for almost 17 years full time. And the 13th felt like my little escape from the rest of Paris because it's mostly residents who live here, full-time students. There are very, very little, Airbnbs, like short-term vacation rentals. If there are, they might be more closer to the 5th, so like at Butokai or in the Gobelin neighborhood. But yeah, I like that it's still affordable. There aren't any that I know of tourist shops. It's like a normal, and I don't want to say quote unquote real Paris. I hate when people say it's the real Paris. And it's like, what's the imaginary, like the imaginary Paris? But
yeah, I live in imaginary Paris.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think it just means that everybody here lives here. It's not, so all of the shops and all of the restaurants and all the cafes are for the people who live here. They're not trying to impress tourists, or worse, just getting off on having tourists and knowing they don't have to be good because there'll always be more tourists. They actually, all the places that are here have to be good because if they don't get the residents, they're going to get nobody.
Yeah.
So I do like that aspect of it. It feels like a break. Plus, like, it's a very casual neighborhood. Like, I don't feel like I have to dress up to walk around in the 13th. Whereas some parts of Paris, I would never go without makeup on, just saying.
Oh, I hardly ever put makeup on unless I've got, like, I don't know, a real special evening or whatever. I'm trying to look special for someone's special day or
I got to work
whatever.
towards that.
It's called like laziness. Actually, I got out of the habit of putting mascara and things on with COVID.
Yeah, lipstick for me, for sure. But yeah, I was a tour guide for 14 years. So, I mean, I spent more time than most people in like the center tourist parts of Paris. And, I do love them. But at the same time, yeah, it was nice to sort of feel like I had a break, like a little escape from all of that.
I'm sure. You said that you really love the fact that everybody kind of lives there. It seems very, I guess, neighborly. It feels like a real neighborhood. Probably your local commerçant, they recognize you and even say bonjour, ma'am.
They do, yeah. And I mean, there's a lot. The 13th is huge, like all of the outer arrondissement. So there's a lot of neighborhoods within it. And my neighborhood, just one metro stop away. And I say one metro because I'm actually between Olympiades and National. It's one of the most confusing metro stops because there's Nation.
Yes, I know.
Which is also at the end of line 6, and then National. So National is on the line 6, one stop after Place d'Italie. So that's at the bottom of my street, but I have to go uphill for that. So I don't.
Oh no, downhill.
I like and the 14 is never on strike.
Oh yeah, I know. It's true. That's a great thing.
Yeah. So I like that about this neighborhood. The neighborhood here, the community feels very different from the community when I lived on the Place d'Italie on the Avenue des Gobelins, which looks and feels very much like the 5th arrondissement. It has all the Haussmann buildings. And then like a block over, you've got the Butokai, which is very cute. And people say it's like Montmartre. I don't feel like it's like Montmartre at all, but that's probably because I live close to it. So I see the difference. But the Butokai is very studenty. It's very casual. It's like, it's a big street with lots of bars and it's fun. And it's got all the cute little garden bungalows. And then this neighborhood I'm in now, I live in an old building across from a church right on the Place Jeanne d'Arc. If you take line 6 and you're looking at all the street art, at one point you'll see to your right, if you're heading towards like Bercy, you'll see on the right a little church at the top of a hill. And that's my square. So it's super cute from my view of my window, but I'm also surrounded by 1960s and 70s towers, which a lot of people do not like. That's what most people think of when they think of the 13th, are all of these towers.
Yeah.
So you have a huge number of families. I mean, there's 3 schools on this square as well. It just seems like at the school run, the sidewalks are just full of strollers, lots of little kids. So it's very, very family oriented. And because of all the towers and all of the families, there are so many supermarkets. Even like during COVID, there was no problem of ever finding anything because there's like 7 supermarkets on like within a block of me. And more after that, just because there's so many people, but it doesn't feel crowded, which is strange. It doesn't feel like, like walking down the Rue de Rivoli on a busy day. But I do like, there's the neighborhood around the Bibliothèque, which is super modern. And I'm from Arizona, where everything's new also. So the Bibliothèque is weird because everything that's there has been built except for the Frigo, the old artist squat, which I love. And I used to visit the Frigo when I was a student, and nothing around it was there. I have a sketch I made from the steps of the Bibliothèque when they were building it. So the steps were there, but the buildings weren't there yet. So I could sit on the steps and sketch Le Frigo. And now if I sit in that same spot, you can't see
nothing. Yeah.
But yeah, I like running around that. I call it the boardwalk, the wooden platform around the Bibliothèque. Because
it's pretty neat looking, actually.
It is. And, there's all these dancers there, especially on the weekends. But because, it's like these big glass walls, and there's just tons of space and there's nobody there. So there'll be like people working out and looking at themselves in mirrors, but lots of dancers. Like there'll be like one person, or there'll be like a group of people. There's like a famous guy. I can never remember what his name is, but he's like a professional moonwalker. He's pretty good. He's always out there with a huge crowd around him. But
I don't think it's Michael Jackson.
It's not Michael Jackson, but he's a young French guy, and he's very good. I'm sure people have seen him. I think he's like sponsored by Lacoste now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he's pretty good. But you've got there on the weekend though, it's hilarious because it just looks like you could just kind of walk around and see like all these groups of kids dancing and all different ages, and it's fun. But you can actually see I don't think people know this. When you walk around there, you can actually see Notre Dame in the distance.
I didn't know that.
Perspective. And then you go around the other side where the bridge is, the Simone de Beauvoir Passerelle that goes to Bercy Park. And from there, you can see, like just before you get on it, you can see Sacré-Cœur. So it's like you see these Central Parisian monuments from this really bizarre modern part of the city. I always find that surprising. But then you get the Chinatown neighborhood, which is obviously well known, and it's quite big as well. And then below that, you have the areas along, I guess, the Périph', which some of them, I guess, like the least expensive part of town of the 13th is along there, but those are mostly social housing.
Ah, okay.
So yeah, they would never be really open to most normal renters anyway. But then, you've got the whole part, like around Gobelin, there's like lovely parks that are sort of hidden. There's the Square René Legal behind there. And then you go towards Glacière. You've got all like these cute little, they're really hidden. You have to kind of find them, but you can find like these, you'll go down these like little cobblestone streets and these little houses with little tiny gardens that used to be
cute
workers' houses. You see them in the 20th as well, but they're also hidden in the 13th. But again, it's like you really have to look between all of these kind of weird skyscrapers that are all over to find, I hate to use the word, to find the hidden gems. But when I was over the years, when I started running, I really discovered the neighborhood when I started running because I needed to find new things to look at because I get bored easily. And then during COVID, we were trapped within 1 kilometer. So I just kept finding all these new things. And, along the river, we've got all the peniches. So the Bateau Phare, I think they call it something else now. And then when I was a student, I used to go to used to be called the Guinguette Pirate.
Oh.
Now it's the Dame du Canton.
Oh, I don't know the new name. I only remember the old name.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so there's just lots of like different parts of the 13th, so you can sort of figure out which area you like and just stay there. So you can stay in a part that's all cute and old, or you can go to a part that's new and modern. And again, like once you've been in Paris for a few decades, God, I feel old. Sometimes seeing really modern stuff is refreshing.
And do you think, for somebody that is maybe moving to Paris, hasn't lived here before, what have you, do you think that they would enjoy living in the 13th around you, let's say around Olympiades?
I think it depends what they're expecting and where it comes from. I actually think most people would like it because it has that sort of mix of the old and new. So it's not, the housing tends to be a little bit more up to date.
Yeah.
Like in terms, like you're not going to have I don't think there's any buildings in this neighborhood that are from like the 1600s, just because I'm pretty sure it was all, oh my gosh, like back, even like before World War I, I think like this neighborhood was one of the last to be put on the grid for Paris. And there's just not, I think it was much like almost like shantytown back before it became part of Paris. So you don't have like when you go into deep into the Marais and into Saint-Germain-des-Prés, you have like these ancient buildings that are, they're
medieval.
full of character, not fun to renovate. Around here,
There is that.
yeah, you have a lot more like mine's considered really old, but it's it's 1902, I think, so it's not that old for Paris standards.
If you're enjoying this episode of Paris, A State of Mind, you may also be interested in our sister podcast, Storytime in Paris. Join Jennifer as she asks 5 questions to authors who've been inspired by Paris. Paris, A State of Mind will be right back after a word from our sponsors. And now back to Paris, A State of Mind. So you said that there were, in your particular area where you live around, your neighborhood, there's a lot of families. You get ran over by strollers and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So yeah, there's lots of schools. There's lots of playgrounds.
Yeah. So is it more like a family-oriented neighborhood where you are?
You've got, I mean, this university is right next door too. And obviously because, and Station F, can't forget that, the big, big startup incubator, which is probably the closest thing we have to hipsters in our neighborhood now. It's definitely not a sort of a bobo free zone, somebody joked. No, I think it is great for families. It is slightly, I say slightly, you obviously know this, more affordable than other parts of Paris, but I think it's good because it's a lot easier to find the space. The sidewalks are a little bit wider. Mm-hmm. Again, there's lots of parks with, like, even if they're like little parks, they're everywhere. Whereas I know when I lived on the right bank, when I had my dogs, it was so hard to find a place. Well, not that you can take dogs into parks, but most parks. But it was so hard to find little parks. I think in the 9th, was it when I lived in the 9th? It was like no park at all. Like, what? You're also really close to some really big parks here. Like we're right next to the Jardin des Plantes and across the bridge from Bercy Park and Parc Montsouris down at the bottom. So we're sort of like right in between all of that. But I think it's pretty family friendly. But yeah, that's a lot, probably like the 14th and 15th as well. And a lot of diversity with the Chinatown, and you also have a large population from Africa as well in this neighborhood. And we do have, which some people think of this as a plus, other people might not. We have one of the largest percentages of public housing of any arrondissement in Paris.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the 13th is. We're very solidarité here. We're quite left leaning politically in this neighborhood.
So that probably does automatically attract a lot of maybe younger families, single, even maybe students.
Yeah. There are a lot of students
with affordable housing.
The downside with all the public housing is that, I mean, there's especially the towers. And somebody asked me, how can you tell which ones are which? I'm like, usually public housing don't have balconies. Student housing also do not have balconies. Just windows, it's flat. I guess the big difference is with all these towers is that, the neighborhood can gentrify all at once, but those towers are never going to go away. They're not going to tear down Olympiades. So it's not like when you look at parts of the 18th or I'm trying to think even the 15th, where people might not like the neighborhood, but the architecture has got good, it's like a good to work with. So someday it'll gentrify. They're just waiting for it to gentrify. But yeah, here it's like you can't gentrify when I think something like 12% of the housing is social housing. So yeah, but again, it makes it, I think it keeps it from, and I say this very gently, but like, I remember when I was a student, I loved the Marais and I could shop in the Marais, and all the students, we used to love hanging out in the Marais, and now the Marais is way too expensive. I don't think that'll ever happen to the 13th. Like it's just not the kind of place you would see a luxury shop open.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you think that there's things that people should know before they were to, say, move into the area, or things that you even wish that you knew before you moved into the area?
Oh, I knew a lot about it. So I think I came in pretty open-eyed. I did not I didn't think that hard about it though, but I knew. The Place d'Italie is like the Place de la Bastille. It's usually either the beginning or the end of manifs on the left bank.
You're right. And that's one thing that I never mention to people when I say, oh, yeah, it's Saturday. There must be a demonstration or something. So avoid République and Bastille. But yeah, Place d'Italie as well, because that's often the end.
Yeah, my old apartment was on the top floor. It was actually technically it was like behind the mairie, so it was like taller than the mairie. So I had my window overlooked the Place d'Italie, and I used to joke that I could have the manif cam just set up in my window so that everybody could see when there was a manif, which was, as you say, like pretty much every weekend. But yeah, if you don't like having your building, kind of covered in stickers for a day and a bunch of people marching outside with their flares. And when I lived there, it hadn't gotten that bad yet, quote unquote. The breaking stuff and setting stuff on fire. So that was never, I don't remember being worried about that. But I mean, obviously the whole, like within a block of Place d'Italie, all the streets around it, all the banks and all the real estate agents put up, wooden boards on their facades the days that there are marches. So if that freaks people out, maybe don't live on the Place d'Italie or along those big boulevards. But otherwise, I mean, again, there's not a lot of kind of trendy places, except at the Buto Kai and right around Bibliothèque. Maybe there's like kind of more studenty type bars. But in general, it's more of it's more of like, it's a nice place to go out, and all the shops are like shops for, there's like the hardware store and the store. And like, it's a very convenient place, I think, to live. So you don't have to like go out. You don't have to go far to go shop, like to find a shop. You don't have to order everything on Amazon. all the regular stores are here, which, I think most people, when you live right in the center of Paris. I used to live, by the way, right above where is now Leroy Merlin. I lived in the Quartier d'Horloge.
Really?
Above the little tick-tocking dragon club.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I lived there when I first got married, and in a really modern building that I loved because it had a garbage chute. I thought that was so cool. But yeah, I lived there, and the Leroy Merlin hadn't opened yet. So when I lived there, you still had to go to BHV's Sous-Sol for like a hammer.
I loved that.
Yeah, back when it was a maze and impossible to find anything.
I know. They changed it now.
I know, it's so clean and easy to get around now. But yeah,
I kind of liked when it was a maze and you had to go in circles to try to find something.
Yeah. But there's so many fun like things that I think the good surprise here. Like there's, again, like it is very much like a let's help people, like help the community, a very solidarité. So like we have food markets here. There's one, like usually I have to go like a block or two to find a food market on any given day. And there's one on my square, but they have a lot of places like they have like a solidarity food truck where you pay what you want and you can like pay extra. So that doesn't have to pay anything. And all the food.
That's really nice.
It is. And all the food is made from donated ingredients from restaurants and supermarkets in the neighborhood. And the people who cook are also volunteers. And then there's like a place, and I'm going to blank on what it's called. I think it's called the Petite Cantine, where it's just like a place you can go and you can either just join for people for lunch or dinner, or you can join in and help cook the meal and then stay for lunch and dinner. So it's just like a way that like people don't have to eat by themselves.
That's nice.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things like that, which again, like it's not really for tourists, I say.
No.
Air quotes. But it's nice if you want to feel like there's a community that you can join. There's definitely tons of stuff to join if you're a joiner. If you want to be left alone and not want to talk to your neighbors, then maybe this isn't the place.
And is there anything else you'd like to add about the area?
We've got great street art. I'm sure everybody's heard that. We've got these massive murals.
Yes.
And they're awesome. Because all those horrible high-rise towers, the mayor decided to like invite all these famous street artists from all over the world. Like Shepard Fairey did one right down the street from me to come and do these massive murals on the sides of these buildings. So it's fun. Although the neighborhood is so spread out, I recommend if you do come to see them, maybe come on a bicycle. But you can take line 6 like through these towers and you'll see a bunch of them from the metro.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, thank you very much. I think that gives everyone a very good overview of the 13th. There are some arrondissements in Paris that are lesser known, and I think the 13th is one of them, which is part of the reason why I'm glad that you came on the show, because it might open people's eyes, even people who are living here who might want to move, but Not too many people, because Heather will wants her 13th to say the same.
Yeah, not too many. Although, yes, I think I just told you last week there was an apartment above me that was up for
Yeah.
because the couple had another kid, so they're moving closer to the grandparents, but they want to keep it. So I wanted somebody I know upstairs. I don't want strangers, but yeah, they filled it up. But
Darn it. And so I might already know the answer to this, but I ask everyone this question. If you could be, money is no object, nothing is, it's your magic dream apartment. You could be anywhere you want in the city, and you could have any apartment you want, any type of apartment. Where would it be, and what type of apartment?
oh, this is a horrible thing to say after saying so many nice things about the 13th, but I would, in a second, I'd live at Palais Royale in the gardens.
Oh, wow. That would be nice.
Yeah, I think it's great because you're right on the 1 and the 7,
Yeah.
really close to the 14 line, and you're right in the middle, but it seems like it's quiet at night. So yeah, I feel like that would be perfect. I saw one apartment for rent once, like a 1-bedroom apartment there, and it was like $5,000 a month.
Woo.
It's yeah, when I win the lottery, I'll be looking there, Gail.
Yeah, that's out of my budget.
There you go.
I did actually once, as you said, I saw an apartment. It was a 1-bedroom apartment for potential property management and things, and for long term as well too. And I know exactly what you're saying, because it was up on a higher floor. The views were amazing, and it just, I don't know, you kind of felt like a king or a queen up there.
I think so. Yeah. Very envious of all the people that live there. Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. And before we go, I would like you to just let everyone know how they can find you, and Secrets of Paris as well too.
Yeah. Well, I'm at secretsofparis.com, and I'm on Instagram, I think also under Secrets of Paris. And I do talk about the 13th a lot. So because it's easiest. Yeah. So if you're curious about the 13th, yeah, you can follow me and
follow you. Yes.
Always adding new stuff about my neighborhood on there.
Well, what I'll do is I'll put your website and your Instagram handle in the show notes so people can reach out and say, "Hi, Heather, we love the 13th," or "Are you crazy?" Or maybe your fairy godmother will hear it and say, "I have an apartment for you at Palais Royale."
I'll swap.
Yeah, exactly.
Just short term, though,
Well, thank you very much. A pleasure as always, Heather.
It's been fun.
Thanks. Have a good day. Thanks for listening to Paris, A State of Mind, featuring Gail of Perfectly Paris and Marie of Loquim, both who are founding members of the SPLM. Paris, A State of Mind is produced by Paris Underground Radio. The music, Jazz in Paris, is by Media Right Productions. For more information on this show and others, go to parisundergroundradio.com.
This episode of Paris, A State of Mind was produced by Jennifer Garrity for Paris Underground Radio. For more great content, join us on Patreon at patreon.com/Paris Underground Radio.